Welcome to the Crow's Tavern. Tonight, we'll journey back to the time of the Norse people, exploring their villages, customs, and daily lives as we drift toward peaceful sleep together. After our story ends, you'll hear the gentle sounds of a crackling fire that will continue for hours without interruption. These soothing sounds will help guide you into a deep and restful sleep. Now let us begin our journey into the Viking world and allow the ancient tales to carry you towards slumber. The golden halls of Asgard stood silent in perpetual twilight, dimmed by unpreceded sorrow, where once laughter echoed, now only whispers passed between downturned faces as grief settled over the realm of the gods. In his private chambers, Hermodr sat motionless beside a window, the embroidered tapestries that usually brought him comfort now seeming to mock the sorrow that engulfed Asgard. The soft glow of enchanted lamps cast long shadows across the polished stone floor, their light unable to penetrate the darkness that had settled in his heart. His finely crafted armor, a gift from the dwarves of Nidavellir on his name day, lay untouched in the corner, gathering a fine layer of dust. His sword remained sheathed, the runes etched along its blade dormant without their master's touch. His red-rimmed eyes, usually sharp and observant, now stared unseeing at the horizon, where the rainbow bridge stretched toward distant realms, its prismatic colors seeming duller than before, as if even Bifrost itself mourned Baldur's passing. Baldur was dead. The thought repeated endlessly in Hermod's mind. His brother, radiant Baldur, beloved by all, had fallen to Loki's trickery. A mistletoe dart, the one thing not bound by oath to never harm the gentle god, had pierced his heart. 7 days had passed since Baldur's funeral ship had been set aflame upon dark waters. 7 days of watching his mother Frigg's tears flow without cease, of seeing Odin withdraw into grief that aged him visibly. A soft knock at his chamber door roused Hermod from dark thoughts. The door opened, revealing Odin himself, entering with uncharacteristic quietness. "My son," Odin said, his voice roughened by days of silence. "Your absence is noted at council." Hermod turned, meeting his father's single eye with a gaze that held no deference, only shared pain. What purpose does council serve now? What words can change what has happened? Odin moved further into the chamber. Purpose remains, even in grief. The 9 realms watch how we bear this loss. Then let them see weakness, Hermod replied bitterly. Let them know that even gods can break. Deem I already know, Odin's voice softened. But they also look to us for hope. They gazed out at Asgard in contemplative silence. "I have consulted the Norns," Odin finally said. "I have gazed into Mimir's well, seeking wisdom beyond ordinary sight." "What did you see?" "A path," Odin replied. "Narrow and perilous, leading into shadow. A bridge shimmering in darkness. A queen who rules where light fears to linger." He paused, his eye fixing on Hermod with sudden intensity. "And a brother's love, strong enough to challenge death itself." Understanding dawned slowly. "Helheim," Hermod whispered. "You speak of Helheim, and of Hel who rules the dead." Odin nodded. "Baldur's soul has journeyed to her realm. He sits now in her halls, neither in torment nor joy, simply elsewhere." "And you believe there is a way to bring him back?" "Not broken," Odin corrected carefully. "Perhaps," negotiated. Hell guards her subjects jealously, yet she is not beyond reason. A price might be named, a bargain struck. Hermod rose, purpose straightening his shoulders. I will go. I will find this path and stand before Hel herself to plead for Baldur's return. I had hoped you would say this, Odin replied. The task requires endurance of spirit and a heart true enough to remain steadfast in the land of the dead. When do I depart? Tonight, Odin replied, when Asgard sleeps and the veil between realms grows thin. You will not travel alone. Sleipnir shall bear you. This gave Hermod pause. Sleipnir, Odin's 8-legged steed, was the swiftest of all mounts, capable of traversing realms where no ordinary horse could follow. Sleipnir knows the hidden paths between worlds, Odin continued. He has carried me to places beyond imagination and returned faithfully. Hermodor nodded. I will prepare myself. He hesitated. Does Mother know of this plan? A shadow passed across Odin's face. Frigg knows there is a chance, however slim, that her son might return. She knows too that sending another of her children into danger may result in double loss rather than restoration. The weight of this knowledge settled on Hermod's shoulders. I will not fail, he vowed, the words emerging as both promise and prayer. Odin studied his son's face. Remember this resolve when shadows press close and the living world seems distant as a dream. Remember it when whispers tempt you to linger in death's realm. Remember it when Hel's eyes meet yours across her dark hall. With these words, Odin departed. Hermod turned to his armor with reverent hands, cleaning each piece methodically. The familiar ritual transformed formless grief into directed intention. As he worked, day faded into twilight. Hermod did not join the subdued evening meal, choosing instead to prepare in solitude. When his armor gleamed once more and his sword shone with fresh oil, he settled cross-legged to center his spirit through meditation. When awareness returned, true night had fallen. Hermod donned his armor, braided his dark hair, secured his sword, and wrapped a grey cloak around his shoulders. No one witnessed his departure from the palace. The guards seemed not to notice his passing, their eyes sliding past him as if he were already half in another realm. In the central courtyard, Sleipnir waited. The 8-legged horse stood perfectly still, his grey coat almost silver in the starlight, intelligent eyes following Hermod's approach. Greetings, Sleipnir, Hermod said softly. I thank you for agreeing to this journey. The great horse dipped his head, then lowered his body slightly in invitation. Hermod mounted smoothly, the horse rising without seeming affected by the weight. We seek the road to Helheim, Hermod murmured. We seek my brother Bald, that he might return with us to the realm of the living. Sleipnir's ears flicked forward with apparent determination. He moved toward the edge of the courtyard, taking smaller paths between buildings and through gardens rarely traveled. They encountered no one on this strange journey through the sleeping city. At the edge, where paved streets gave way to wilderness, Odin waited alone, leaning on his spear Gungnir. No words passed between father and son, only a long look charged with all that remained unsaid. Odin raised his spear in silent blessing, and Hermod bowed his head in response. Then Sleipnir broke into a trot, carrying Hermod away from the last outpost of warmth and light. The landscape changed subtly as they journeyed. The familiar golden-tinged fields surrounding Asgard gave way to wilder terrain. Forests, where trees grew too close together, meadows with flowers of impossible colors, streams that flowed uphill. Sleipnir navigated these oddities without hesitation. They traveled through the night and into what should have been dawn, yet no true sunlight broke over this in-between realm. The stars above shifted into unfamiliar constellations, patterns unknown to even the most learned astronomers of Asgard. Occasionally, lights like distant aurora borealis rippled across the sky, in colors that had no names in any mortal tongue. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress unpredictably, moments extending into what felt like hours, then suddenly collapsing so that great distances were crossed in what seemed mere heartbeats. Instead of sunrise, a pearly luminescence gradually suffused the air, neither warm nor cold, but somehow both at once, revealing their surroundings with unsettling clarity. The light cast no shadows, as if it emanated from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. In this strange illumination, even familiar objects took on an otherworldly quality. Rocks appeared to breathe slowly, patches of moss glowed with faint internal light, and occasionally crystalline formations erupted from the ground, only to dissolve back into mist moments later. The terrain changed again, becoming barren and rocky. As they climbed higher, mist gathered around them, a clinging silver-grey vapor that seemed to whisper as it curled around Sleipnir's legs. Hermodr felt a chill that penetrated even his Asgardian resistance. This cold originated not from the air but from within, as if warmth itself was being slowly extracted from his being. "We approach the boundaries," he murmured, "the edge of living realms." The mist thickened until visibility extended barely beyond Sleipnir's head. Then, without warning, it parted like a curtain drawn aside. Hermodr's breath caught at the vista suddenly revealed. They stood at the edge of an immense chasm so deep that its bottom vanished into absolute darkness. Spanning this abyss was a single bridge. Yellowbrew, the bridge to Helheim, just as Odin had described. Unlike the rainbow bridge of Asgard with its vibrant colors, Yellowbrew was narrow and seemingly fragile, arching across the void in a perfect semicircle. Its surface glimmered with subdued golden light, providing the only illumination in this twilight realm. "Is this the only way?" Hermod asked softly. Sleipnir approached the bridge's edge with careful steps, lowering his head to study the golden pathway. After a moment, he raised his head and snorted decisively. "I understand," Hermod said. "We go forward together." Sleipnir placed his front hooves on the bridge with delicate precision. The structure resonated with a clear tone like a perfectly struck bell. With each step, another note joined the first, creating a somber melody that seemed to speak of longing and memory. Hermod lost track of time as they traversed Gjallabru. The bridge seemed to extend far longer than physical possibility would allow. The ringing melody of their passage became the only constant, marking their slow progress toward death's realm. Gradually, Hermod became aware of movement in the darkness beneath. Shadowy forms drifted in the void, too distant to distinguish clearly, yet undeniably present. "Keep your gaze forward," he reminded himself. "Our purpose lies ahead, not below." The shadows moved regardless, gathering beneath Gjallabru like moths drawn to the bridge's subtle glow. Whispers rose from the darkness. Not words exactly, but sounds that mimicked speech. "Brother, seeker, living flesh among the dead. Why do you come? What do you seek? I seek Balder, my brother, Hermod answered steadily. I come to bring him home to Asgard. The whispers multiplied, overlapping like wind through autumn leaves. Balder the bright, he walks among us now. His light dims slowly in her halls. Does he remember sunshine? Does Asgard's memory fade like evening into night? He remembers, Hermodr insisted. He waits for me to find him. So certain, the whispers took on a mocking edge. The living always believe their concerns matter to the dead. But time moves differently here. Memories dissolve like salt in water. Perhaps he finds peace in forgetting. Hermodr clenched his jaw. Balder's place is in Asgard. His death was orchestrated by Loki's malice. He would not choose to remain here. The choice may not be his. Hel guards her treasures. Balder shines even in death. Why would she surrender such a prize? Before Hermod could respond, Sleipnir increased his pace. The resulting melody grew more complex, drowning out the whispers. The shadows retreated and silence returned. The bridge continued to stretch before them, seemingly endless in the uniform twilight. Yet something had changed in the quality of the air. A subtle densing, as if they approached substance after traversing emptiness. In the distance, a shoreline materialized from the mist. The bridge descended toward this plain, its endpoint marked by two towering stones positioned like sentinels. Intricate carvings covered these mechaliths, runes and symbols so ancient that even Hermod's godly knowledge could not decipher them fully. Between these markers, where Gjellabru met solid ground, stood a figure. At first glance, it appeared to be a woman wrapped in grey, but as they approached, the figure's true nature became apparent, a construct of bone and shadow, held together by ancient magic. The entity raised a hand in command to halt. Sleipnir obeyed without hesitation. Living flesh seeks entry to the realm of hell, the Guardian spoke, its voice neither male nor female but a harmonization of many tones. State your purpose, son of Odin, or turn back while the path remains open. Hermod straightened on Sleipnir's back. I am Hermod, son of Odin and Frigg, brother to Balder, who now resides in Helheim. I come seeking audience with Hel herself, to plead for my brother's return to Asgard. The Guardian remained motionless, empty eye sockets somehow conveying intense scrutiny. What makes your grief worthier than countless others who accept death's finality? I do not claim superior worth, Hermod answered carefully. But Balder's death came not from natural cause, but from malicious trickery engineered by Loki. Death cares little for method or motive, the Guardian replied. All come to Hel's realm eventually, save those claimed by Valhalla. Your brother belongs to Hel. Hermod mastered his frustration. I do not dispute the natural order, but when that order is disrupted by deliberate malice, might there not be cause for exception? I ask only for the opportunity to present this case to Hel herself. The Guardian fell silent. When it finally spoke again, the voice had taken on a different quality, older, deeper, resonating with authority. Passage is granted, but not without price. Answer this riddle, Hermod Odinson. I am the beginning of eternity, the end of time and space, the beginning of every end, and the end of every race. What am I? Hermodoth considered carefully. the beginning of eternity, the end of time and space, the beginning of every end, the end of every race. Understanding dawns suddenly. The answer is the letter E, he stated. It begins the word eternity, ends the words time and space, begins the word end, and concludes the word race. The Guardian's form seemed to ripple with approval. Correctly answered. Few pause to consider the simplest solution when faced with cosmic questions. The construct stepped aside. You may enter Helheim. May your wits serve you as well before Hell's throne as they have at her gate. Sleipnir moved forward, passing between the ancient megaliths. As they crossed this threshold, the air changed texture, becoming heavier, filled with fine mist that clung to surfaces. The temperature dropped further, not to freezing, but to an unnatural coolness that seemed to slow the very flow of blood. Before them stretched a vast plain shrouded in eternal twilight. Pale grasses covered the ground, moving in patterns that suggested breeze, though no wind could be felt. Scattered throughout this expanse stood ancient trees with silver bark and leaves that appeared black in the muted light. So this is Helheim, Hermod murmured, not the place of torment depicted in mortal tales. Sleipnir continued forward along a path that became visible only as they advanced, a slightly darker line through the pale grass. The trail wound between the silver trees, occasionally passing what appeared to be small dwellings half hidden in the misty distance. As they journeyed deeper, shapes began to materialize, ghostly figures that paused to observe the living god in his magical mount. Unlike the formless shadows beneath Gjallabru, these spirits retained humanoid form, though their substance seemed as insubstantial as morning fog. One figure, bolder than the rest, drew near enough for Hermod to discern features. An elderly woman, with a face lined by decades of mortal existence. You bring the scent of sunlight and growing things, she observed, her voice a whisper that nonetheless carried clearly. It has been so long since I remembered such sensations. Hermod inclined his head respectfully. I come seeking one who has only recently joined your realm, my brother Bald, beloved by all who knew him in life. The spirit's expression softened. The Bright One, yes. His coming was noted by all. So much warmth and light, even dimmed by death. She gestured vaguely ahead. He resides in Hell's Hall, as befit his station in life. Can you tell me of Hell herself? Hermod asked. She is neither cruel nor kind, neither generous nor miserly. She simply is. Justice embodied, without passion to sway her judgment. The ghost's form wavered slightly. Approach with respect, but without fear. Speak truth without embellishment. Make no promises you cannot fulfill. The spirit faded back into the mist. Hermodred nodded in silent thanks for the counsel, then urged Sleipnir onward. They continued through the misty plains for what felt like hours. Gradually, the scattered trees gave way to more formal arrangements, avenues converging toward a central point, still hidden by distance and mist. The number of spirits increased, gathering silently to watch their passage. None spoke or attempted to interfere, but their collective presence created a palpable weight in the air. Finally, the mist parted to reveal their destination. Hell's Hall rose before them, a structure seemingly carved from a single massive piece of dark stone that absorbed rather than reflected light. No windows interrupted its smooth surface, and a single entrance gaped at the front. an arched doorway framed by intricate carvings. Before this imposing edifice stood a small contingent of figures, more substantial than the misty dead. These guards wore armor of blackened silver and carried spears that glowed with cold blue light. Their faces remained hidden behind expressionless masks. Sleipnir halted at a respectful distance, her mod dismounted with fluid grace, patting the steed's neck in gratitude and unspoken request to wait. Approaching the guards alone, Hermod maintained a measured pace. He placed his right fist over his heart in formal salute, a warrior's gesture recognized across many realms. "I am Hermod of Asgard," he announced clearly. "I request audience with Hel regarding my brother Bald, who now resides within her domain." Without word or visible signal, the guards parted to form an honor guard, leading to the entrance of Hel's hall. The doors stood open in clear invitation, revealing absolute darkness beyond the threshold. Hermod paused momentarily, steeling himself. Then, with resolute purpose, he stepped from Helheim's twilight into the complete darkness of Hel's inner sanctum. For several heartbeats, he stood in perfect blackness. Then, gradually, his divine sight adjusted to reveal a vast hall with a ceiling so high it vanished into shadow. The interior walls featured elaborate friezes depicting pivotal moments in the history of gods and mortals. The hall extended far ahead. Columns resembling world trees with 9 distinct branches supported the invisible ceiling. Between these columns stood silent guardians, neither living nor truly dead, but sentinels of this threshold between states of existence. At the far end, upon a dais of graduated steps, stood a throne formed from intertwined roots that might have been wood or stone or something altogether different. Upon this throne sat Hel herself, ruler of the dead and daughter of Loki. Her appearance struck Hermod with unexpected force, not because of monstrous features as mortal tales often depicted, but because of her perfect duality that embodied the threshold between life and death she governed. The right side of her form appeared as a beautiful woman, with skin pale as winter moonlight, her features carved from alabaster with the delicacy of the finest sculptor's hand. Her eye on this side shone with the deep green of ancient forest shadows, and her hair flowed like a river of midnight. Her right hand rested on the throne's arm, fingers long and elegant, adorned with rings of strange metals unknown in the realm of the living. The left side, however, revealed the reality beneath life's illusion. Exposed bone yellowed with age, sinew dried like ancient leather, and the eternal grin of a skull where half her face should be. The eye socket on this side held only a floating point of cold blue flame that somehow perceived more deeply than any living eye could. Her left hand was skeletal, joints bound by magic rather than tendon, yet it moved with the same grace as her living hand. Where her heart should be, a strange pulse of light could be glimpsed through gaps in her ribcage, neither fully bright nor fully dark, but something in between that seemed to draw the eye yet repel it simultaneously. Her garments flowed around her form like living shadow, sometimes appearing solid as velvet, other times insubstantial as mist. A crown of intricate design rested upon her head, forged from materials that seemed to shift between precious metals and bone as Hermod's gaze moved across it. The mismatched eyes, one deep green like forest shadows, the other a glowing point of blue light in an empty socket, fixed upon Hermodr as he approached. He felt the weight of her attention like physical pressure, ancient beyond reckoning and entirely devoid of emotional responses. At a respectful distance from the dais, Hermod knelt on one knee, head bowed in formal acknowledgement of her sovereignty. He remained thus, silent, awaiting permission to speak. "Rise, son of Odin." Hel's voice filled the hall without seeming to increase in volume, melodious and hollow simultaneously. Few living beings kneel before death with such grace. Fewer still come willingly to my halls. Hermod stood as commanded, meeting her dual gaze directly. "I thank you for granting audience, Queen of Helheim. I come on a matter of great importance to Asgard and all living realms. You come for Balder," Hel stated without preamble. "Your grief walks beside you like a shadow, visible to any with eyes to see." Hermodor inclined his head. "Yes, I seek my brother's return to Asgard, to the family that mourns him, and the realm that has dimmed in his absence." Hel tilted her head slightly, the movement fluid on her living side and mechanical on her skeletal half. "All who enter my realm are mourned by someone. Why should Balder receive consideration not granted to countless others? I do not claim that our grief outweighs others' sorrow. I ask not for special treatment due to Balder's divine nature." Hermod paused. "I seek justice, not preference. Balder's death was orchestrated through malice and deception, targeting him specifically because of his goodness." Hel remained motionless as she considered this argument. The silence absolute, save for the faint sound of Hermod's breathing. "Approach," she finally commanded, gesturing with her skeletal hand. Hermod climbed the steps until he stood directly before her throne. "You speak of justice," Hel continued. "Yet you seek to undo what has occurred rather than punish the wrongdoer. What justice is served by reversing this outcome while Loki remains free to cause further mischief?" "Loki's punishment is not mine to determine," Hermod answered honestly. "That responsibility falls to Odin Allfather. My purpose here concerns only Balder's fate. And if I were to release him, what guarantee exists that he would not simply return through another's machination?" Hermod had not considered this. "I cannot offer absolute assurance against future harm, but knowledge gained through loss has made us wiser. Asgard would guard him more carefully." Hel's living lip curved in what might have been a smile. "Wisdom purchased through suffering, the oldest currency in all realms." She leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, if I were to name a price for Balder's return, would you pay it, regardless of cost?" "If it were mine alone to pay, yes," he answered without hesitation. "But I cannot pledge Asgard's resources or another's sacrifice without authority." "An honest answer," Hel acknowledged. "Rare enough to merit consideration." She raised her living hand, and the air beside her throne shimmered. From this disturbance stepped Bald himself. Hermod's breath caught at the sight of his brother. Largely unchanged in appearance, still radiant even in the gloom of Hel's hall, his presence creating a subtle sphere of warmth that pushed back the chill of death's domain. His golden hair caught what little light existed in the hall and seemed to amplify it, creating a soft halo effect around his head. The fine garments he had been buried in remained pristine, their colors unfaded despite the journey through flame and water to reach this realm. Yet subtle differences revealed his altered state. A translucence occasionally rippled across his form when he moved, as if parts of him momentarily existed in another dimension. The wounds from the fatal mistletoe dart had vanished, leaving no scar, as if death had healed what life could not. Most striking were his eyes, once blue as summer skies, clear as mountain lakes. They now held the same mystic quality as the wandering spirits, depths of gentle sorrow and ancient wisdom far beyond what he had possessed in life. Around his wrists, almost invisible unless viewed from certain angles, were thin bands of shadow. Not restraints in the physical sense, but markers of hell's dominion, the subtle chains that bound the dead to her realm. Despite these changes, his smile remained the same, the expression that had brought comfort to countless beings across the 9 realms, now tinged with melancholy, but no less genuine in its warmth. "Brother," Balder said, his voice simultaneously familiar and distant, "you have journeyed far." Hermod fought the impulse to embrace him. "Balder, you are well? You are yourself?" A smile touched Balder's lips, though it held melancholy. "I am as you see me, neither suffering nor entirely at peace. Memories of Asgard remain, though they grow less substantial with each passing day. Mother weeps without ceasing," Hermod said softly. "Father withdraws into silence. Asgard's light dims without your presence." Pain flickered across Balder's features. "I would spare them such sorrow if I could." El raised her skeletal hand for silence. "Bald resides in my realm, according to the laws that govern all existence. Yet laws permit exceptions when circumstances warrant." Her mismatched gaze moved between the brothers. "I will set a test to determine whether this case merits such exception." Both gods turned their attention fully to her. "Return to Asgard, Hermod," Hel commanded. "Then let every living thing in all 9 realms weep for Balder's loss. If all beings mourn him as you claim, if every creature sheds tears for his absence, then I will release him to return when you journey here again." Hermod considered this condition carefully. Every living thing, plants and beasts, as well as sentient beings? "All that lives must weep," Hel confirmed. "If even one creature refuses tears, Balder remains in my halls until Ragnarok." The challenge was immense, yet not impossible. Balder had been truly beloved by all creation during his life. Animals had sought his touch. Plants had blossomed in his presence. "I accept your terms," Hermod declared. "I will return to Asgard and ensure all creation mourns my brother's loss." Hel nodded once, the movement precise and final as judgment itself. "So be it. You have 9 days to accomplish this task, a day for each realm. On the 10th dawn, return across Gjallarbrur with proof of universal mourning." Balder stepped forward, moving with the peculiar grace of the dead. "Brother, take this." He removed a gold ring from his finger and pressed it into Hermod's palm. "Show this to Mother as proof you found me. Tell her I remember the garden where she taught us healing herbs, and the songs she sang when storms frightened us as children." Hermod closed his fingers tightly around the ring, still warm despite Balder's altered state. "I will tell her, and I will return for you. This I swear by all that binds us as family." Hel waved her hand in dismissal, and the hall began to fade around Hermod, not through his movement, but through the realms shifting in response to its queen's will. "Remember," Hel's voice followed him, 9 days, all beings, not one exception." Then Hermod found himself standing once more in Helheim's twilight. Sleipnir waited nearby, exactly as he had left him. "We return to Asgard," he told Sleipnir quietly, "with hope and a task of immense proportion. The journey back seemed both shorter and more direct. The misty spirits of Helheim watched their departure with silent curiosity, perhaps expecting that Baldur's potential release might somehow change the nature of their own existence. When they reached solid ground, the mists parted. Familiar stars shone overhead, and in the distance, Asgard's golden halls gleamed against the night sky. Hermod felt a surge of determination to succeed in the task Hel had set, to restore his brother to his rightful place among the living. 9 days to inspire universal grief. 9 days to convince all creation to weep for one being's absence from the world. A challenge worthy of a god, and one Hermodr intended to meet with every resource at his disposal. Baldur would return. This he vowed as Sleipnir carried him homeward through the gathering dawn, across the boundary between Death's domain and the realm of the living. The first rays of morning sunlight touched Asgard's highest spires as Hermodr and Sleipnir approached the city gates. Word of their arrival spread quickly. By the time they reached the central courtyard, a small gathering had formed to greet them. Odin stood at the forefront, Gungnir in hand, his single eye sharp with questions. Beside him, Frigg waited with barely contained emotion. Thor loomed nearby, his usual energy subdued by the solemnity of the moment. Hermod dismounted, bowing deeply to his parents, before straightening to deliver his news. The courtyard fell absolutely silent. "I have seen Baldur," Hermodr announced. "He resides in Hel's Hall, unchanged in appearance, though transformed by death's touch." He withdrew the golden ring. "He sends this as proof of our meeting, and a message for you, mother." Frigg accepted the ring with trembling hands. "His ceremonial band," she whispered. "What message does my son send?" "He remembers the garden where you taught us healing herbs," Hermod relayed softly, "and the songs you sang during storms when we were children." Tears spilled freely down Frigg's cheeks. Not unending grief, but something touched with joy, of confirmed connection. "Then he is truly himself still." Odin moved forward. "What terms did Hel set?" "She offers Baldur's return on a single condition," Hermodr explained. "Every living thing in all 9 realms must weep for him. If all beings mourn his loss with tears, she will release him. If even one creature refuses to weep, he remains in Helheim until Ragnarok." Murmurs rippled through the assembly, some expressing hope, others concern at the scope of the challenge. Thor stepped forward, hammer in hand. "Then we shall ensure all creation weeps. I will personally visit each realm if necessary." "We must act quickly," Frigg said. "How long did Hel grant for this task?" 9 days, Hermod replied. "A day for each realm that must mourn." Odin nodded gravely. "A fitting time frame. The challenge is substantial, but not impossible." He turned to address the gathered Asgardians. "Spread throughout the 9 realms, carry word of Baldur's chance for return. Remind all beings of his goodness, his light, his generosity of spirit." The assembly dispersed with immediate purpose. Soon only the royal family remained in the courtyard. "We must begin in Asgard itself," Frigg decided. "Then extend outward to the other realms." By nightfall of the first day, all of Asgard had wept for Baldur. The tears collected in special vessels, tangible proof to present before Hel. As planned, Hermod departed for Vanaheim with the dawn. The Vanir responded with immediate emotion, Freya herself leading the morning ceremony. He brought light where others cast shadows, she told her assembled people. From Vanaheim, Hermod travelled to Alfheim. The light elves wept willingly, their tears like liquid starlight. Reports arrived from other realms. Thor had succeeded in Midgard, where humans remembered Balder through legends. The dwarves of Svartalfheim had been moved by memories of Balder's appreciation for their craftsmanship. Even in Muspelheim, realm of fire giants, tears had been shed. By the 7th day, 8 realms had mourned. Only Jotunheim remained, the realm of frost giants, ancient enemies of Asgard. Odin himself had journeyed there. As evening approached on the 9th day, a messenger arrived. The All-Father returns from Jotunheim, he announced. Heimdall sends word to prepare for his arrival. Minutes stretched until finally Odin appeared, looking weary but triumphant. The frost giants have wept, Odin declared. Even they remembered Balder's fair dealings during the last treaty negotiations. The All-Father held forth a vessel containing tears that glittered like ice shards. The proof of Jotunheim's mourning. The 9th realm completes our task. Preparations began immediately for Hermod's return journey to Helheim. The vessels of tears were carefully packed in containers specially designed to preserve their contents. With the dawn, Hermodra departed once more for Helheim, carrying the 9 realms' tears. The journey seemed faster this second time, perhaps because anticipation lent speed to their passage. When they reached Gjallabru, Hermod noted subtle differences. The golden pathway seemed brighter, the surrounding mists less oppressive. The whispers from below came with curious inquiries. Does he succeed? Does he bring the required tears? Will the Bright One return? We shall soon know, Hermodr answered as Sleipnir carried him forward. The guardian at Helheim's entrance awaited their arrival. You return as promised, it observed. With proof of mourning? From all 9 realms, Hermodr confirmed. Every living being has shed tears for Baldur's loss. The journey through Helheim's plains passed quickly. Even the landscape seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the outcome of this unprecedented negotiation with death itself. Hel's Hall appeared unchanged, but the doors stood open in clear invitation. Carrying the precious vessels of tears, Hermod entered with measured steps. Hel herself sat upon her root throne, her dual nature striking Hermod anew. Welcome again, son of Odin, she greeted him. You return on the 10th dawn, as instructed. Hermodr placed the vessels of tears on the stone floor before her. I bring proof that your condition has been met. Tears from every living thing across all 9 realms. With a gesture of her skeletal hand, the vessels rose into the air, unsealing themselves to reveal their contents. One by one, each vessel presented their contents for Hel's inspection. The golden tears of Asgard, the starlight tears of Alfheim, the molten droplets from Muspelheim, the ice crystals from... After examining each vessel, Hel returned her attention to Hermod. You have indeed gathered an impressive collection, she stated. Almost all beings have wept for Baldur's return. A single word sent a chill through Hermod's heart. Almost. Hel's living side formed a smile that did not reach her eye. One being refused to weep. One creature withheld tears, despite your eloquent appeals. Cannot be. We approached all beings. None refused once Baldur's story was shared. Yet one did, Hel insisted, waving her hand to create an image of a cave in Jotunheim, where a single figure sat smirking. The giantess Thok refused tears, claiming she had neither benefit nor joy from Balder, and so would offer no moisture from dry eyes. The image revealed a hunched female form wrapped in grey furs, her face partially hidden yet somehow familiar in its malicious glee. "'Tis no true giantess," Hermod breathed. "That is Loki in disguise, continuing his malice." "Perhaps," Hel conceded. "Yet my condition was absolute. All beings must weep. Whether genuine giantess or disguised trickster, this being has not wept. The condition remains unfulfilled. Then Balder remains in your realm. All our efforts for nothing because of one being's spite." "Those are the terms as stated," Hel confirmed dispassionately. "One exception negates the agreement." "May I see him?" he asked, his voice controlled despite the turmoil within. With a gesture, Hel called Balder into her presence. He appeared golden and radiant, even in death's domain. Recognition and joy at seeing his brother quickly gave way to understanding as he observed the scene. The vessels of tears, Hermod's controlled anguish, Hel's impassive stance. "We failed," Balder stated quietly. "Someone refused to weep." "Loki," Hermod confirmed bitterly. "Disguised as a giantess called Thalk. He alone among all creation denied you tears." Balder showed no surprise, merely sad acceptance. "Then I remain in Helheim until world's end," he concluded with remarkable composure. Hermod stepped toward his brother. "I will return," he vowed. "Perhaps not to bring you home, but to ensure you are not forgotten. The paths between realms remain open to me now." "It would bring comfort," Balder acknowledged. "But do not let your life become defined by my absence, brother. There is purpose for you beyond these shadows." Hel raised her hand for attention. "Your task has failed by the strictest interpretation of my terms," she stated. "Yet the scale of what you have accomplished merits acknowledgement. Never before have the 9 realms united in shared emotion as they have for Baldur's sake. Balder must remain in my realm as decreed," Hel continued. "However, there are degrees of existence even within death's domain." "What mean you by this?" asked Hermod. "Though Balder cannot return to Asgard in physical form, his essence may visit the dreams of those who loved him most," Hel explained. "Not every night, nor at will, but when the barriers between realms thin naturally. A pale shadow of true return," Hermod observed, "yet more than absolute separation. It is what I can offer within the boundaries of my authority," Hel stated. "Death's rules bend for exceptional circumstances, but they cannot break entirely." Balder stepped forward. "I accept this compromise with gratitude. To maintain connection with those I love, even in limited form, is a gift beyond expectation." Hermod took longer to consider, finally nodding acceptance. "It is more than we possessed before this journey began. A thread connecting realms, where once existed only silence." Hel acknowledged their acceptance. "Then it is decided. Balder remains within my domain, but may walk in dreams during times when realms draw close." She fixed her gaze on Hermod. "Return to Asgard with this message, and the knowledge that, though your challenge was not met in full, it has altered death's landscape in ways previously unimagined." With these pronouncements delivered, the audience concluded. Hermodr embraced his brother briefly before collecting the vessels containing creation's tears. These would return to Asgard as evidence of their unprecedented effort. The journey homeward carried a complex mixture of emotions. Disappointment at their technical failure alongside appreciation for the partial victory achieved. Balder would not return physically to Asgard's halls, yet neither would he be entirely absent from the lives of those who loved him. As Sleipnir carried Hermodr across Gjallarbrú for what might be the final time, the whispers from below seemed to understand the outcome. Not victory complete, yet not defeat absolute. A middle path where connection persists despite separation. The dead dream of the living as the living dream of the dead. The voices quieted to a gentle murmur that blended with the musical notes of Sleipnir's hoofbeats on the golden bridge. It created a melody both haunting and soothing, a song of spaces between life and death, between presence and absence, between memory and forgetting. The air itself seemed lighter now. The oppressive weight of death's finality lifted not by triumph, but by compromise, by the discovery that boundaries thought absolute might instead be permeable under certain circumstances. Hermod found himself breathing more easily, each breath drawing in the cool mist that now seemed refreshing rather than chilling. Above the bridge, something like stars began to appear in the eternal twilight. Not true stars, perhaps, but distant lights that formed patterns suggesting hope rather than despair. The eight-legged steed beneath him moved with renewed vigor, as if sensing their task. While not completed as intended, had nevertheless altered the very fabric of understanding between realms. The mists parted to reveal Asgard in the distance, its golden spires catching evening light from a sun that seemed brighter somehow, its rays reaching further than before. The rainbow bridge stretched toward them in welcome, its colors once again vibrant and alive. Heimdall would be standing at his post, his golden eyes already seeing their approach, long before they physically arrived. Beyond him, the city waited, its people suspended between grief and hope, eager for news yet fearing disappointment. Despite the challenges ahead, Hermod felt a measure of peace settle within him, a calm acceptance that replaced the desperate determination of his outward journey. They had attempted what none before had dared, to challenge death itself, to negotiate with hell on her own terms, to unite 9 realms in shared purpose. Though they had not achieved complete victory, neither had they faced complete defeat. Something had been accomplished that would echo through the ages, a precedent established that might, in some distant future, open doors currently thought forever closed. The silent bridge of Gjallarbrú had been crossed in both directions. Communication had been established where only separation existed before. The boundaries between realms, while still firm, had proven more permeable than previously believed, and somewhere in Helheim's twilight halls, Balder continued to exist, changed yet fundamentally himself, separate yet connected, lost yet somehow found. As Asgard's outlines grew clearer, Hermod whispered a promise to the evening air, knowing somehow that his brother would hear it across the divide. Until dreams bring us together again, bright brother. Until then, as the final whispers of the silent bridge of Gjallarbrú fade into the realm of dreams, we turn our attention from Hermod's bittersweet journey to another tale from the 9 realms, one of betrayal, consequence, and the inexorable bonds of fate. While Balder remains in Helhelm, permitted only to visit the dreams of those who love him, the architect of his death has yet to face justice for his crimes. Loki's malice did not end with the mistletoe dart that pierced Balder's heart, nor with his disguise as the giantess Thok, who refused to weep. The trickster's final deception ensured Balder would remain in death's embrace, denying Asgard its brightest light. Such actions could not go unanswered forever. The god's patience, stretched thin by centuries of Loki's mischief, finally snapped under the weight of this ultimate betrayal. Where once they had tolerated his schemes with sighs and reluctant forgiveness, now their hearts hardened toward one who had proven himself no true friend to Asgard. As we leave behind the misty twilight of Helheim and the shimmering gold of Gjallarbrú, we descend beneath Midgard's surface, to caverns where neither sunlight nor moonbeam has ever reached. Here, amid stone older than the gods themselves, another story unfolds, one of punishment, suffering, and the endurance of bonds both physical and spiritual. Join us now for the last ember, Loki's binding beneath the earth, where the trickster god learns that even his silver tongue cannot talk its way out of fate's judgment, and where the consequences of betrayal echo through chambers of stone, until Ragnarok's distant drums begin to sound. The descent into darkness feels eternal. Narrow stone passages wind ever downward, carved not by mortal hands but by the slow persistence of water through ancient rock. The air grows colder with each step, yet somehow heavier, weighted with memory and consequence. This, deep beneath Midgard's surface, sound behaves differently. The whisper of water against stone echoes with unnatural clarity, while louder noises seem muffled, as if the very earth consumes them. Runes of binding and containment mark the walls at irregular intervals, their faint blue glow providing the only consistent illumination. These are not the workings of human shade workers, but the magic of the Aesir themselves, scripts of power, etched by divine hands to ensure what lies below remains forever separate from the realms above. Each symbol pulses with subtle energy, watching, waiting, maintaining the boundaries set by those who rule from Asgard's golden hall. The final passage opens unexpectedly into a cavern of breathtaking scale. Its ceiling vanishes into shadow, while its floor stretches away into darkness, broken only by scattered pools of water that reflect what little light exists here. Massive columns of stone rise like the pillars of some forgotten temple, formed over millennia by the patient marriage of mineral and moisture. The air here tastes of salt and iron, of tears and blood, and time immeasurable. At the chamber's center lies the reason for these elaborate precautions. A figure bound to a flat stone that rises like an altar from the cavern floor. His form is difficult to discern at first, shadows clinging to him like reluctant lovers. Only as one approaches does his outline clarify, tall and lean, with features that even in captivity suggest both nobility and cunning. This is no mortal prisoner, but a god in chains, his limbs secured by bonds no ordinary metal could form. Loki Laufeyson, blood brother to Odin, father of monsters, the flame that both illuminates and destroys, now reduced to stillness in the heart of the world. Above him hangs a serpent, secured to the cavern's ceiling by more runes of binding. Its scales glisten with a sickly iridescence in the dim light, its body motionless except for the slow rhythmic contractions of venom glands. At precise intervals, a single drop of poison falls from its fangs, its descent through the cold air seeming to last an eternity. The drop never reaches its target. A figure stands beside the bound god, her movements as consistent as the tide. Sigyn, wife of Loki, holds a shallow wooden bowl above her husband's face, intercepting each toxic drop before it can touch his skin. Her arms must ache beyond imagining, yet her posture betrays no weakness, no hesitation. Her eyes, when they catch what little light penetrates this depth, show neither anger nor sorrow, only determination that has transcended ordinary emotion to become something fundamental as the stone itself. "Tell me again," Loki whispers, his voice surprisingly melodic despite his circumstances. "Of the sky above Asgard. Does Heimdall still stand his watch upon the Bifrost? Does Thor's laughter still echo through the halls of Gladsheim? Or have they begun to forget me already, content in their false peace?" Sigyn does not answer immediately. The bowl in her hands has nearly filled, and her concentration remains fixed upon keeping it perfectly positioned. Only when the serpent's venom production momentarily slows does she speak, her voice soft but unwavering. "Demia have not forgotten, husband. Your name passes their lips with equal measures of rage and caution. Heimdall watches, Thor thunders, Odin broods upon his throne." She shifts her weight slightly, adjusting to the constant strain. "Nothing has changed in the realms above, save that they are diminished by your absence. Though none but I would admit this truth." A bitter laugh escapes Loki's lips, causing his bonds to tighten reflexively. The runes inscribed in his chains glow brighter for a moment, sensing his emotion and responding with cruel efficiency. "Diminished? Oh, how generous my loyal wife remains, even in this pit of despair. Tell me, do you truly believe the golden halls suffer without the shadow I cast? Or do you speak these comforts merely to preserve what little sanity remains to me?" Sigyn's expression remains unchanged, her eyes fixed on the bowl that grows heavier with each passing moment. "I speak only truth to you, Loki. I always have, even when lies would have brought greater comfort." A single drop of perspiration traces a path along her temple, the only visible sign of her exertion. Demons have their own sovereignty, and the little girls debate and fight and scheme as always, yet there is disquiet beneath their revelry. Something essential is missing from their perfect realm. The question that challenges the answer, the doubt that tests conviction, the fire that proves the metal. "Poetic," Loki murmurs, his eyes closing briefly. "You have always had a gift for finding beauty in darkness, my Sigyn. Perhaps that explains your inexplicable loyalty to one who brought you nothing but sorrow." "Never nothing," she corrects him gently. "Never nothing." The conversation pauses as Sigyn's bowl reaches its capacity. This is the moment both prisoners dread, when the vessel can hold no more venom and must be emptied. What follows is a ritual performed countless times since Loki's imprisonment began, yet one that never loses its horror. "It comes," Sigyn says softly, warning in her tone. Loki's body tenses against the unyielding stone, muscles straining against bonds designed to hold entities far stronger than mere flesh. His breathing quickens, though he makes no sound of fear or anticipation. Only his eyes betray him, widening slightly as they fix upon the full bowl tilting in Sigvind's hands. "I'm ready," he says, the words little more than breath. With movements honed by grim repetition, Sigyn steps away from Loki's prone form, taking the bowl of accumulated venom with her. For this brief period, nothing stands between the bound god and the serpent's poison. The first drop falls almost immediately, landing directly upon Loki's forehead. The effect is instantaneous and horrific. Where the venom touches, his divine flesh sizzles and burns, the pain so intense that his entire body convulses against his restraints. The cavern itself seems to respond to his agony. The ground trembles, loose stones cascade from the distant ceiling, and the runes along the walls flare brightly in response to his power surging against containment. Though his suffering must be beyond mortal comprehension, Loki does not scream. His jaw locks in a rictus of pain, tendons standing out like cords along his neck, but no sound escapes save for a hiss of breath through clenched teeth. This, too, is part of the punishment, that he who wielded words as weapons now bites them back, refusing to give his captors the satisfaction of hearing his torment. Sigyn works with desperate efficiency, emptying the bowl into one of the distant pools, careful never to touch the deadly liquid, then rushing back to her position. The entire process takes less than a minute, yet in that brief span, several drops have fallen, each marking Loki's skin with fresh agony. When she again interposes the bowl between poison and prisoner, the relief in the chamber is palpable. "Forgive me," she whispers, resuming her endless vigil. Loki's breathing gradually steadies as the immediate pain recedes, though the burned areas will take time to heal, and will never fully recover before the next emptying becomes necessary. When he finally speaks again, his voice carries a ragged edge previously absent. "There is nothing to forgive, faithful one. The fault lies not with she who eases suffering, but with those who inflict it." His gaze drifts toward the cavern's ceiling, though his expression suggests he sees far beyond mere stone. "They call me oathbreaker and betrayer, yet which of us first broke faith? Which of us first wove deception into the very fabric of our fellowship? In the dim light, memories seem to take physical form, shadows coalescing into scenes from a past both distant and ever-present in Loki's consciousness. The images flicker like smoke, insubstantial yet undeniably real within this place, where reality bends to the will of the divine. "I brought them gifts," he continues, addressing these phantoms as much as Sigyn. "I solved their problems when brute strength and righteous posturing failed. I gave them Mjolnir, the walls of Asgard, victory when defeat seemed certain." A tremor passes through his bound form, half laugh and half sob. "For every mischief I created, I resolved 3 more. Yet they remember only the chaos, never the necessary catalyst. The shadows shift, forming the suggestion of a feast hall filled with gods and goddesses. Their faces blur in the dim light, yet their golden splendor remains unmistakable, the shining Aesir in all their glory. Among them moves a darker figure, leaner and less ostentatious, his words causing first laughter, then discomfort, then fury as the illusory scene progresses. "He may feared what they could not control," Loki whispers, watching this memory play with eyes both bitter and wistful. "My nature is fire, dear wife, not the domestic hearth that Thor's followers cherish, nor the forge flame that Odin harnesses for creation. I am wildfire, necessary for the forest's renewal, terrible in my hunger, impossible to tame without destroying my essence." Sigyn shifts her position slightly, adjusting to the gradually filling bowl. "Yet fire need not consume indiscriminately," she observes quietly. "Even wildfire follows paths determined by wind and fuel. It makes choices after its fashion." "Choice," Loki echoes, the word hanging between them like the poison suspended in Sigyn's bowl. Was it choice when I revealed the weakness in Baldur's seeming invulnerability? Was it choice when I guided the blind Hodder's hand? Or was I merely fulfilling the role assigned to me since Ymir's bones first formed the world, the necessary darkness that gives meaning to their light? The shadowy tableau changes, centering now on a lone figure radiant with internal light. This is Bold the Beautiful, most beloved of all the Yeis, his face captured in an expression of perfect joy, moments before tragedy. Around him cluster admiring gods, testing his famous invulnerability with weapons and stones that bounce harmlessly from his blessed form. Was everything I could never be, Loki continues, his voice distant. Loved without reservation, trusted without question, pure without effort. His very existence was a mirror that showed all my imperfections in merciless detail. The memory vision shows Loki at the gathering's edge, watching with an unreadable expression as the gods make sport of Baldur's gift. I did not hate him for this, or at least not only for this. I hated what his perfection revealed about the nature of divine favor, about the arbitrary bestowal of grace and protection. The scene changes subtly, focusing now on an elderly woman sitting alone in a simple dwelling. Memory Loki approaches her in disguise, engaging her in seemingly innocent conversation about distant happenings in Asgard. Frigg went to every creation in all 9 realms. Loki narrates as the scene unfolds, securing promises that they would never harm her beloved son. Every creation, save one, she deemed too inconsequential to bother with. The humble mistletoe, too young and weak to pose any threat. The memory shows his expression changing as he receives this information, something crystallizing behind his eyes, such carelessness from the queen of the gods, such presumption, one tiny oversight in an otherwise perfect defensive scheme. The vision blurs forward to the fatal moment. Hodar standing apart from the festivities, his blindness excluding him from the game of testing Baldur's invulnerability. Memory Loki approaches with gentle words and a mistletoe dart, offering the blind god a chance to participate in the celebration, guiding his hand for the throw that no one expected could bring harm. I merely asked a question, Loki whispers as they watch the memory dart find its mark. If Baldur was truly protected against all harm, truly the embodiment of perfect divine blessing, then my test should have failed like all the others. I did not create the vulnerability, I merely revealed it. I did not invent the cosmic oversight, I merely exploited it. The memory scene dissolves as Baldur falls, shock freezing the expressions of all present. The silence in the cavern grows profound enough that each drop of venom landing in Sigyn's bowl echoes like a funeral drum. You speak as though you were fate's instrument rather than your own, Sigyn observes after this extended silence, her voice neither accusatory nor accepting, simply questioning. Am I not both? Loki responds, strain evident in his voice as he shifts against his bonds. Did Odin not proclaim that even the gods are subject to word, to the pattern woven before our consciousness began? We play our parts in the great tapestry, believing ourselves to choose freely, while following threads established at creation's dawn. His laugh holds no humor. The jest is cosmic indeed, the trickster tricked by fate into becoming exactly what everyone feared he would be. The shadows around them coalesce once more, showing the aftermath of Baldur's death, the shocked grief, the gradual hardening of expressions as faces turn toward Loki, understanding dawning like a terrible winter sun. The silent tableau depicts his flight, his desperate attempts at transformation and concealment, and finally his capture in the form of a salmon, dragged struggling from a quiet stream as the judgment of the gods descended upon him. Demi could have killed me, Loki observes dispassionately, watching his own past suffering with detached interest. Perhaps they should have. Death might have been a cleaner end than this half-existence, this eternal anticipation of pain followed by its inevitable arrival. The vision shows his binding with the entrails of his own son, transformed by divine magic into unbreakable fetters. Demi chose the punishment to fit what they believed was the crime, the pain of family destroyed to answer family destroyed. Binding rather than ending to ensure I would witness the consequences of my actions unfolding across millennia. The memory scenes fade gradually, leaving only the cold reality of the cavern. Sigin's arms have begun to tremble slightly from the strain of holding the nearly gypsy bowl, though her determination never wavers. "Do you regret it?" she asks simply. Loki remains silent for so long that it seems he might not answer. When he finally speaks, his voice holds a complexity of emotion that defies simple categories of remorse or defiance. "I regret the necessity," he says carefully. "I regret that the pattern required such a breaking point. But regret implies an alternative path forsaken, and I remain unconvinced such a path existed." His eyes find hers in the dim light. The gods needed their villain as much as their hero, their shadow as much as their light. They needed someone to absolve them of their own darker impulses by embodying what they feared within themselves. A tremor passes through the cavern, not the violent convulsions that accompany Loki's direct suffering, but something deeper and more distant. Both prisoners pause, attentive to this new development. Such tremors have been increasing in recent times, though neither speaks openly of what this might portend. "The world above changes," Sigurd observes once the subtle shaking subsides. "New gods approach distant shores, and the worship of the old ways wanes with each passing season. Those who remember the true names of the Aesir grow fewer, their offerings more meager, their understanding more fragmented." "Yes," Loki agrees, a strange anticipation entering his voice. The great wheel turns, regardless of Odin's efforts to halt its motion. The All-Father's power diminishes in proportion to his worshippers' devotion. A cold smile touches his lips. "My children grow stronger in the shadows. Fenrir tests his chains with each passing year. Jormungandr stirs in the world-encircling sea, and Hell's domain swells with the souls of those who no longer find Valhalla worthy of their final allegiance." Another tremor runs through the stone, stronger than the last, dislodging small fragments from the distant ceiling. A few scattered pebbles land near Loki's restrained form, one brushing against Sigin's sleeve as she maintains her careful position with the venom bowl. "They have forgotten the prophecies in their complacency," Loki continues, his voice taking on a rhythmic quality reminiscent of Sada's speech, the magic of foretelling. "They feast in golden halls while the wolf grows hungry. They boast of eternal glory while the serpent encircles their realm, tail in mouth, waiting for the moment to release its grip. They enshrine order while chaos gathers strength from their every oversight and exclusion." His bonds glow brighter as he speaks, sensing the power in his words. The runes along the cave walls pulse in response, their magic straining to contain not just the god's physical form, but the dangerous potentiality of his very thoughts. In this moment, bound and tormented though he is, Loki's presence fills the cavern with undeniable force, a reminder that imprisonment diminishes his power but cannot eliminate it. Ragnarok approaches, he whispers, the ancient words seeming to resonate within the stone itself. The twilight that ends their golden age and begins something else, something they cannot control or predict or safeguard against with their warrior oaths and magical trinkets. And you? Sigurd asks, her steady gaze never leaving his face, despite the increasingly ominous rumblings around them. What becomes of Loki in this twilight of the gods? His laughter now holds genuine amusement, though edged with something darker and more volatile. I break free, faithful one. When the moment ripens, these bonds will shatter like ice in spring floods. The venom will cease its fall. The cavern will open to sky once more. His expression softens as he regards her. And you, my constant companion in darkness, will finally know rest. I did not ask for rest, she responds with quiet intensity. I asked of your fate. The bowl in her hands has reached its capacity once more. Both prisoners recognize the moment's arrival, the inevitable resumption of suffering approaching with the precision of cosmic machinery. Yet Loki continues speaking, unwilling to leave her question unanswered before pain claims his coherence. I lead my children and my allies against the realm that rejected us, he says, each word deliberate despite the urgency. I face Thor upon the plain of Vigrid, neither of us surviving the encounter. I die as I lived, bringing necessary destruction, clearing the ground for whatever comes after the flame has purged the old growth. His eyes lock with hers, but that is tomorrow's tale. For now we remain here, playing our appointed parts in the great cycle. Sigurd nods once, understanding both what he has said and what remains unspoken. It is time, she says gently, beginning to step away with the bowl of accumulated venom. Wait, Loki calls, an unusual note of vulnerability entering his voice. Before the burning begins again, tell me one truth I can hold against the pain. One certainty to anchor myself when all else becomes fire and fury. Sigurd pauses at the edge of her reach, the bowl precariously full in her steadying hands. What truth would ease your suffering, husband? Tell me, he asks, his expression suddenly stripped of artifice and calculation, revealing something rarely seen even by his loyal wife. That amid all the lies and manipulations, amid the cosmic game played with our lives as pieces, amid prophecy and punishment, tell me that what exists between us was of our own making. Tell me that at least this small corner of the pattern was truly chosen, not merely assigned by uncaring fate. A single drop of venom falls as Sigyn considers her response, landing on Loki's temple. His body jerks against the restraints, but his eyes never leave her face, waiting with uncharacteristic patience for her answer. The gods may bind your limbs, she says finally, her voice soft yet clear enough to carry over his strangled breath, and fate may claim your future, but my choice to stand beside you. To catch what poison I can and share what cannot be avoided. That belongs to neither destiny nor divinity. That, my love, is mine alone to give, and has been from the first moment to this one. Something in Loki's expression eases despite the growing frequency of falling venom. Then I can endure, he whispers, until the appointed hour. Sigyn moves with swift grace to empty the bowl, her actions now charged with renewed purpose. The usual tremors shake the cavern as multiple drops strike Loki's unprotected form, yet there seems a subtle difference in his resistance. Not less pain, but perhaps greater meaning found within it, transforming raw suffering into something approaching sacrifice. When she returns with the empty vessel, resuming her position with practiced precision, the atmosphere in the cavern has shifted in ways difficult to articulate. The darkness seems less absolute, the cold less penetrating, the isolation less complete. Nothing external has changed. The prisoner remains bound. The poison continues its relentless fall. The prophesied freedom lies in some unknown future. Yet something fundamental has been acknowledged between them. A truth perhaps more powerful than the enchantments that maintain this underground prison. Rest now if you can, Sigyn murmurs, settling into her stance for another long period of vigilance. Dream of open skies and liberation. I will stand guard over both your body and your visions. Loki's breathing gradually steadies, his expression smoothing towards something approaching peace. The shadows around them seem to respond to this subtle shift, their movements becoming less frenetic, more purposeful, less like chaotic darkness and more like the slow dance of celestial bodies tracking their ordained paths across the night sky. I dream of fire, he says softly, his voice already taking on the distant quality of one slipping toward unconsciousness. Not the fire of destruction, though that too has its place in what comes. I dream of the fire of transformation, the necessary burning that precedes new growth. His eyes close fully, tension gradually leaving his restrained limbs. I dream of the last ember carried from the consumed world, sheltered and nurtured until it can spark a fresh beginning. As Loki drifts into whatever approximation of sleep is possible in his circumstances, Sigyn maintains her endless watch. The venom drops with unchanging rhythm. The bowl intercepts each deadly fall, and the cycle continues, as it has since the binding began, and will until prophecy brings its end. Yet within this superficial constancy, something has altered. A recognition, perhaps, that even the most tightly woven pattern contains threads of genuine choice. Moments where fate's hand loosens just enough to allow authentic connection between conscious beings. Above, the world continues its inexorable movement toward Ragnarok. Wolves howl at the borders of divine territory, serpents stir in lightless depths, the roots of Yggdrasil tremble with premonition, and the gods feast with increasing desperation, as if merriment might somehow delay the approaching twilight. Winter lengthens into Fimbulwinter. Summer shortens to a brief, uncertain warmth, and worshippers look toward new gods with younger faces and promises of personal salvation rather than cosmic order. Time passes differently in the depths. What might be years or decades or centuries in the realms above translate to an eternal present in Loki's cavern prison, an endless succession of poison caught and poison endured, of whispered conversations and profound silences, of memories revisited and prophecies contemplated. Through it all, Sigyn stands constant, a commitment neither diminishing nor wavering as ages turn above them. Meanwhile, deep within the bound god's consciousness, plans form and reform like living flame. Awareness expands outward along channels invisible to his captors, touching the minds of his hidden children, nurturing their resentment, feeding their hunger for recognition and retribution. Though physically constrained, Loki's essence reaches toward the approaching conflagration, not with dread, but with terrible anticipation. The Firebringer preparing for the ultimate expression of his nature. The cavern's darkness cradles these dangerous dreams, unwitnessed save by Sigyn and the watching runes. Their blue glow seems somehow dimmer now, their power slightly less certain, as if responding to subtle shifts in the cosmic balance. The bonds holding Loki have not weakened in any physical sense, yet there exists around him a growing sense of potentiality, of energy gathering for some momentous release. The last ember, he murmurs in his half-sleep, the words barely audible even in the cavern's perfect acoustics. The spark preserved through darkness, waiting to ignite what follows the end. Sigyn says nothing in response, but her eyes reflect the distant glow of the runes, patient, resolute, and perhaps holding their own dangerous spark of anticipation for the world that might emerge when fire finally cleanses the corruption of the old order. Her bowl remains steady, catching each drop of venom with unwavering precision, while above them the great wheels of the cosmos turn inexorably toward their appointed convergence. In this deepest darkness, this seeming stasis, the seeds of dramatic transformation take root and grow, invisible for now, but gathering strength with each passing moment, waiting for the prophesied hour when chains shall break, poisons shall fail, and the suppressed fire at the heart of creation shall finally burn free once more. With each drop of venom that falls, with each tremor that shakes the earth, with each whispered word between prisoner and protector, that hour draws nearer. The gods might try to forget the bound trickster in their midst, might build their walls higher and forge their weapons stronger, but they cannot escape the pattern established before the first dawn broke over Asgard's golden spires. For now, the cavern holds its secrets close. The bowl catches what poison it can, the bound god dreams of flame and freedom, and somewhere far above, in the world of light and air, the final winter begins its slow descent, heralding the end of one age and the fiery birth of what comes after. As Loki drifts in the liminal space between waking and dreaming, memories rise unbidden, not just of his crimes and punishment, but of earlier days when his place among the Aesir seemed less tenuous. The shadowy air around him shifts again, conjuring visions of a younger Loki walking beside Odin through Asgard's splendid halls, the two not yet estranged, sharing secrets and strategies as blood brothers sworn to mutual loyalty. "We once walked between worlds together," Loki murmurs, his voice barely disturbing the cavern silence. "I showed him paths unknown to other gods, taught him magics no warrior would deign to learn. He gave me a place at his table and called me brother." The memory vision shows the two figures leaning close in conversation, one dark and lean, one broader with a single piercing eye. What changed between us, Sigyn? Was it always inevitable that the god of wisdom would eventually fear the god of challenging questions? Sigyn adjusts her position slightly, her movements economical after countless repetitions. Perhaps he merely feared losing that which he valued most, his certainty, his control over fate's design. "I feared nothing except stagnation," Loki continues, watching the memory dissolve and reform into a scene of divine revelry. Himself positioned slightly apart from the others, observing their predictable patterns with thinly veiled disdain. "I saw them growing complacent in their power, repeating the same stories, fighting the same battles, celebrating identical victories, millennium after millennium. They called it tradition. I recognized it as entropy disguised as stability." The vision shifts again, showing Loki in various guises and transformations, sometimes female, sometimes male, sometimes neither or both, occasionally not even remotely human in form. These changes, flowing one into another, demonstrate an essential truth about his nature that the other gods never fully comprehended. Demai feared what they could not categorize, he whispers, watching his many selves with something approaching fondness. My fluidity threatened their rigidity. My questions undermined their answers. My very existence suggested alternatives to their carefully ordered cosmos. A bitter smile touches his lips. How ironic that they bound me in the one state I find most constraining, unchanging permanence. Sigyn watches these memory forms with quiet interest, her own expression revealing nothing of judgment or surprise. Yet, even now, husband, your essence remains mutable. These bonds constrain your body, but cannot fully contain your spirit. You dream and plot and reach outward through means they have not anticipated. Yes, Loki acknowledges, the word carrying complex layers of meaning. They sought to remove the wildfire from their forest, not understanding that fire suppressed too long only guarantees a more devastating conflagration when it inevitably returns. His gaze shifts to the serpent above, its constant venom production unaffected by the passage of time or the conversations occurring beneath its suspended form. Dima transform me from catalyst to victim, not recognizing that victimhood carries its own terrible power, the power of justified vengeance. Another tremor passes through the cavern, stronger than those before, causing dust and small stones to rain down from the distant ceiling. This time the shaking continues longer, the very air seeming to vibrate with some deep cosmic disturbance. Sigyn braces herself, managing through sheer determination to keep the bulb properly positioned despite the violent motion surrounding them. When the tremor finally subsides, something has changed in the quality of darkness filling the vast chamber. The runes along the walls flicker like dying embers, their magic weakening in response to forces too great or distant to fully comprehend. The serpent above shifts position slightly, the first movement it has made in centuries, its eyes opening to reveal pupils like vertical slits in fields of molten gold.
Be evil, Loki whispers, a new intensity entering his voice.
My children sense the approaching hour. Fenrir tests his chains with renewed vigor. Jormungandr loosens his world-encircling grip by fractional degrees. Hell expands her cold domain, preparing to receive the greatest influx of souls since creation's dawn. His expression combines pride and terrible anticipation. They have grown mighty in their exile, mightier perhaps than the Aesir suspect or fear. Sigyn studies her husband's face with careful attention, reading layers of meaning behind his words. You speak of them with a father's pride, yet they suffer as you suffer, bound or banished or relegated to shadow realms. Does their pain not weigh upon you as heavily as your own? It fuels me, Loki admits, no trace of deception in his voice. Their undeserved suffering feeds the fire of my resistance. The gods feared them for what they might become, and so ensured they would become exactly that, enemies powerful enough to bring about divine destruction. He laughs softly, the sound echoing strangely in the vast space. Another jest of cosmic proportions, prophecy fulfilled through the very actions taken to prevent it. The bowl in Sigyn's hands has nearly reached its capacity once more. As she prepares for the inevitable emptying, a new sound penetrates the cavern's isolation, distant yet unmistakable. Thunder rolls across the worlds above, massive and threatening, carrying a distinctive resonance recognized by both prisoners. Thor rides, Loki observes, his tone caught between dismissal and grudging respect. The mighty defender of Asgard patrols the boundaries of divine territory, his hammer striking fear into those who would challenge the established order. His eyes track the dissolving remnants of his memory visions, which scatter like startled birds at this intrusion from the upper world. Does he sense what approaches, I wonder? Does he feel the subtle weakening of the bonds that hold creation in its proper channels? Sigyn makes no response, focused now on the critical task of emptying the nearly empty bowl. With practiced efficiency, she steps away from her position, moving toward one of the distant pools where the accumulated venom can be safely deposited. The serpent above seems somehow more alert than before, its golden eyes following her movement with newfound interest. As the first drops of uninterrupted venom strike Loki's exposed skin, his body convulses with familiar agony, yet something new enters his expression amid the pain. A fierce exaltation, as if each burning drop confirms some private calculation or expectation. The earth shakes in response to his suffering, more violently than ever before, fragments of the cavern ceiling crashing down around him. Through clenched teeth, barely audible above the rumbling stone, he speaks words not directed at his absent wife, but at some more distant audience. Soon, father. Soon, brother. Soon, precious nephew, whose death opened the path to ending. The fire comes for all of us, justified or innocent, prepared or oblivious. None escape the cleansing flame, not even its bearer. By the time Sigyn returns with the emptied bowl, the immediate convulsions have subsided, though Loki's breathing remains labored. The cavern continues to tremble intermittently, as if the very foundations of Midgard grow increasingly unstable. The runes of binding along the walls pulse erratically now, their once steady glow fluctuating between brilliant intensity and near darkness. Something fundamental shifts, Sigyn observes as she resumes her position, studying these changes with the careful attention of one long accustomed to finding meaning in small variations within seemingly unchanging circumstances. The magic weakens, not from any failure of craft, but from alteration in the underlying reality it seeks to control. Yes, Loki confirms, his voice carrying new strength despite his recent suffering. The twilight approaches not just for gods, but for magic itself, at least magic as they understand and wield it. The old forms weaken as new possibilities emerge. His gaze traces the faltering runes with evident satisfaction. They built their cage with yesterday's power, not understanding that power itself evolves beyond its creator's intention. Silence falls between them, but it is no longer the oppressive quiet of isolation. This silence thrums with anticipation, with currents of change flowing through stone and air alike. The serpent above has fully awakened now, its body shifting in subtle undulations that suggest testing of its own magical restraints. The venom still drips with metronome precision, but each drop seems somehow less potent than before, as if its magical properties diminish alongside the fading rune. Tell me, faithful one, Loki says after this extended silence, his tone softer than before. What will you do when the bonds finally break? When prophesized chaos erupts across the 9 realms and even the mighty Thor falls before its onslaught? Will you still stand beside the architect of ending? Sigyn's unwavering gaze meets his, her expression revealing complexities rarely seen during their long confinement. I have never stood beside the destroyer, Loki, but beside the necessary catalyst. Creation stagnates without renewal. Order calcifies without disruption. The bowl remains steady in her hands despite the increasing tremors shaking the cavern. I will follow neither Asgard's path nor chaos unchecked, but the narrow way between, where destruction clears space for what must emerge after. A smile of genuine warmth transforms Loki's features, softening the lines etched by pain and captivity. The gods never deserved your loyalty, yet neither, perhaps, did I. You see with clearer eyes than any being across the 9 realms, the necessary balance that neither side fully comprehends. I see only what is, she responds simply, and what must be. Another massive tremor shakes the cavern, this one powerful enough to dislodge a substantial column of stone from the distant wall. It crashes to the floor with a thunderous impact, narrowly missing the bound god and his steadfast companion. Dust fills the air, momentarily obscuring vision, while the sound reverberates through the vast space like the footfall of some approaching giant. When the air clears, the changes in their prison have become undeniable. Several of the binding rooms have gone completely dark, their magic dissipated into the surrounding stone. The serpent above writhes with increasing vigor, its restraints visibly weakening with each passing moment. Most significantly, fine cracks have appeared in the mystical bond securing Loki to the stone altar. Hairline fractures in what was once impenetrable divine craftsmanship. It begins, Loki whispers, wonder and vindication mingling in his voice. After an eternity of waiting, the wheel finally turns full circle. Sigyn says nothing, but her posture shifts subtly, straightening as if preparing for action long anticipated. The bowl remains steady in her hands, catching each drop of increasingly diluted venom, but her gaze now moves constantly between her husband's bonds and the deteriorating magical infrastructure of their prison. Far above, beyond stone and earth and the boundaries of human perception, greater changes unfold across the 9 realms. Midgard groans under unseasonable cold, crops failing in fields turned hard as iron by relentless frost. Jotunheim's ice giants gather at their borders, sensing weakness in the magical barricades long maintained by Asgardian power. The roots of Yggdrasil itself shudder as something ancient and terrible stirs in the deepest darkness beneath the world trip. And in Asgard's golden halls, unease spreads among the divine revelers. Conversations falter mid-sentence, mead cups pause halfway to lips, as each immortal being simultaneously senses some profound disturbance in the cosmic order they have maintained for millennia. Odin rises from his high seat, his single eye turning toward the east with sudden urgency. Thor's hand closes instinctively around Mjolnir's handle, the weapon humming with responsive energy. The hour approaches when prophecy transitions from abstract possibility to immediate reality, when carefully constructed defenses crumble before forces set in motion at creation's dawn, when even gods must face the consequences of choices made in arrogance or fear. Deep in the cavern beneath the worlds, Loki feels these changes resonating through his very being. With each passing moment, the bonds restraining him weaken further, responding to the larger destabilization of divine magic across all realms. His breathing quickens with anticipation, centuries of forced patience giving way to the imminent possibility of action. Soon, he whispers, the word carrying both promise and threat. The fire returns to a world grown cold in its absence. Sigyn nods once, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than agreement or disagreement. She has made her choice countless ages ago, and reaffirms it with each drop of venom intercepted, each moment of suffering eased, each quiet conversation in darkness. Whatever comes, whatever flames engulf the 9 realms, whatever new growth emerges from the ashes, she has claimed her place in the pattern, neither with gods nor against them, but in that liminal space where genuine choice remains possible. The last ember waits, growing brighter with each passing moment, preparing to ignite the conflagration that ends one world and begins another. Our Viking tale has now concluded. You will now hear the peaceful sounds of a crackling fire and gentle ambient noises that will continue throughout the night without any interruptions, helping you drift into a deep and restful sleep. May the stars of the northern sky watch over you, and may you find peaceful rest until the morning light. Sleep well, and good night.